Hey everybody, I'm Max Ada with Juggernaut Training Systems. I'm going to talk about developing leg strength, part 2. This is the methods and means we use to develop leg strength for weightlifting. So in our first video we talked a little bit about timing of training for the legs strength and when different methods are going to be used. We're going to talk about those methods here. I'm going to do a little brief explanation though. When we use different methods is important, and what those methods are is important. Early in the training cycle, we're going to use different methods than we are right before a competition. We have different effects that we're getting, different adaptations we're getting from these different methods. Some are beneficial for the competition, some are going to have negative impacts on our ability to perform the lifts. So early in the training cycle, we're going to start with much higher repetitions per set and more total volume devoted to leg strength. More of the volume will be devoted to leg strength relative to the Olympic lifts or the classic lifts. As we get closer to competition, that's going to shift. More of our emphasis is going to be put on the classic lifts, things that are higher specificity to the sport, and leg strength takes a backseat or a reduction in volume. The basic method we use for the squat, the basic squatting program, is linear in nature. Our loading is linear. We have a set point we start at, and we increase in a standard amount of weight week to week to week until we hit a certain point where we're going to deload once fatigue becomes too great, and then we start again the next phase, very similar. The linear loading is beneficial. In my opinion, the linear loading for the squatting like this works very well because it gives us a good feedback as to what the fitness levels of the athlete are, and a tangible sense of the athlete for them to realize how strong they are. It helps when the athlete has a chance to see this, the chance to see the increases week to week, day to day, because it gives them confidence that things are moving forward, things are moving upward, and there's a productivity and a momentum developed and built throughout the training cycle. Basic method, we're going to have one top set of weight. They'll work up to their top set of 10 for the week or for the day. For instance, if that's 100 kilograms for a lifter, or in someone's case, maybe 150 kilograms or 170 kilograms, they're going to take that weight, 10 repetitions, execute it, drop down 90% of that, and do sets of 10 until they just reach the desired number of sets for their workout. People that are gaining weight may do more sets, more down sets. People that are not trying to gain weight will do less down sets. Depending on the phase or where they are in the end of that phase, they'll do more or less work, depending on how much fatigue they have. It's easy to manage fatigue with down sets. We can eliminate them or increase them depending on the work capacity. They still have a chance though to hit their increased weight each week, their linear increase in the weight each week, without having to modify the program if they're more or less fatigued. Basic exercises we'll use: back squats, front squats, belt squats, and safety squats. For the back squat, key points are to remain upright, keep your torso upright, keep your back straight, use your legs and quadriceps to do the movement. We're doing the back squat to develop leg strength for weightlifting. The goal is not the back squat as an ends, right? We're not using this back squat. We're not doing the back squat to have the largest back squat possible. We're doing the back squat to develop leg strength for weightlifting. So it's important to use the excellent technique. Sacrificing use of your legs to muscle up weight with your low back is not going to have as good a transference to the snatch and clean and jerk as it would if you had a much more correct technique, much more upright technique, better posture. Same with the front squat. Super important to do things we do with the accessory movements as we would with the classic lifts. Big thing for front squatting that I think is overlooked is the grip. A lot of people will use a grip that is most comfortable, but may not actually have as good of a transference for them for weightlifting. If you're new to the sport, I'd highly recommend learning to do a front squat with a complete grip around the bar, the same as you would for a jerk. This will allow you to develop better flexibility in your arms, shoulders, wrists. It'll also help you in stability for the start position of the jerk. So we always try to recommend people maintain the full grip on the bar like they're gonna do a jerk, like they're cleaning. The second cue, front squat, second basic point is to use your legs, keep your knees forward over the foot, Use your legs as much as possible, keep your back straight and upright, keep your chest up throughout the movement, and try to recover in a similar position as you would for a clean. It's not recommended to have your feet much wider or much narrower than you would recover from the clean, but it's not entirely a deal breaker if you have to put yourself in a slightly different position. There's a trade-off, obviously less specificity, but larger results, bigger adaptations. That's something that every coach or athlete is going to have to weigh there in terms of the position of their feet in the front squat. Finally, the belt squat. This exercise is a great additional movement used for developing the quad strength itself. When we do belt squats, our emphasis is entirely on the quadricep. Very little of it is going to be in the hips or the back. We want to keep our body as upright as possible, almost no leaning forward. The belt should be worn as low as possible to put the pressure on top of the hips as close as you can get to the pelvis so that we can load the quadriceps properly. Knees gonna track forward over the toe, knees gonna stay over the toe out of the hole. Most of this exercise is gonna be done in the very bottom of the squat, meaning you're not gonna get a huge benefit out of it at the very top of the lift. So we really wanna emphasize that the lowest portion of the belt squat is done correctly. Sitting way back, falling back onto your heels during the bottom of the squat or the belt squat would be the worst thing you could do because you're just gonna waste time. You're not gonna develop your legs as well as you could if you maintained a better position and stopped slightly higher, kept keeping your knee in the right position, emphasizing basically the bottom portion of a squat here. As far as all three of these go, how they work in the training cycle, the front squat, back squat are used throughout the entire training cycle. They're done for higher repetitions, max rep sets, down sets, all of those things from hypertrophy phase, strength phase, and peaking phase. Throughout the entire cycle, they're suited for any repetition range. Belt squats are suited much better to the higher repetition phases, building muscular hypertrophy, work capacity. They do a better job there because they're a much smaller range of motion. It's a simpler exercise. They're difficult to load with heavy weights, so we don't generally do them with repetitions lower than 5 to 6. And even in that case, it's probably extreme. Most of the time, you're gonna get most of your benefit out of these doing them early in the training cycle. One caveat to that is that lifters who have a difficult time using their legs in the squat are going to benefit from using this exercise as maybe a warm-up or a proprioceptive exercise before they squat or on off days when they're not doing as much squatting volume overall. The impact of it is low, and they can capitalize on the tactile sense they get of feeling their quadriceps, maybe their quads get a little bit sore, and they can use that feeling later during the lifting, during squatting and other workouts. It facilitates that, but in and of itself, it's not done with a significant amount of weight or volume to have an impact. It's just a proprioceptive thing. Final exercise that is done somewhat irregularly, not done as a staple exercise, would be safety squats. The safety bar is a great tool for people that are injured, shoulder injuries, wrist injuries, a surgery, something like that. Allows them to squat without having to use their hands or put their hands on the bar. This is excellent. In that case, it's done generally with us, done only for people who have those problems. If somebody has shoulder pain or elbow pain from using a regular barbell, the safety squat is a great variation, a great exercise we can use to still allow them to train their legs, probably more than they would with the belt squat because they're still able to load the back a little bit and put more weight on a safety bar than they would be able to put on the belt squat. So it's kind of an in-between exercise. It's generally an on and off thing. Somebody's gonna do it if they need to do it, but it wouldn't be the first choice as exercise for developing strength. But it definitely has its place. Same cues, keeping your torso upright, allowing the knees to track over the toe, keeping the body upright, rigid, trying to resist the bar changing your position, trying to push you forward or keep you off balance. It's personally, I would say the safety squat bar feels somewhere in between a front squat and a back squat. The weight's high on your shoulders. Bar is gonna put the weights slightly in front of you though, like a front squat. So it feels sort of in between those. It's definitely The rhythm and tempo of the exercise is definitely be different than the front squat or back squat because the bar doesn't bend at all. So it feels much heavier when you go through the motion, especially the bottom range of motion. Now let's take a look at the nuts and bolts practical side of the squat program. We have this broken down into the 3 different distinct phases that we use, and those are going to be identified by the number of repetitions per set and the amount of total volume versus the amount of intensity in the block. First block, the hypertrophy phase, the general phase, we're going to have on our heaviest day of squatting is going to be somewhere between 8 and 10 reps as a maximum set. This weight is essentially maximum in the early part of the cycle because we're loading linearly, because we're going to increase week to week to week. The lifters are going to start conservatively in that phase or in that workout. So if your best ever set of 10 is 100 kilograms, you're probably going to start the training cycle with less than that, about 75% of your 1 rep max, or maybe a conservative 10 rep max, 12 rep max, leaving 1 to 2 in the tank. This is something that a coach and athlete have to work on together to pick the right number for this weight. Our volume is then accomplished with drop sets based off of that top set weight. We use somewhere between 80 to 90% of the top set as a starting point, depending on the lifter's fitness, depending on the lifter's ability to recover, depending on the size of the lifter, age, weight, classification, those kind of things, will determine our drop sets, will determine how much volume they're gonna do. These sets will replicate the same number of repetitions that were done with the max rep set, the top set. We increase loading through this phase, week to week to week, before we deload. Because hypertrophic gains are driven by volume, we also increase volume, but volume is the main factor we're increasing in this block. That's accomplished through an increase in the number of sets we do on the number of drop sets we do. The second day, third day, fourth day of squatting is going to be done with the drop sets. So for the first day we do our top set and 2 down sets. The second day of the week we'll have 3 down sets, then increase that the next week to 4 down sets, 5 down sets, and so on. We increase volume by adding sets rather than increasing volume by just doing more repetitions per set or increasing the number of days. It's generally not necessary in the way we've done things to have many more than 2 or 3 squat days. It's certainly possible, but for the most part, people that need a significant increase in leg strength are going to do better with this style of training than squatting more and more frequently. Moving on to the strength phase, same basic structure. The number of reps per set changes from somewhere between 4 to 6, even as low as 3. Drop sets are going to be the same structure. We're going to drop down 20 to 10%, do our down sets there. In this phase, loading is still linear. The intensity is the main focus. We're increasing intensity here. So our volume stays relatively consistent. We're not going to increase the number of down sets here as we do in the first phase. This will remain relatively constant. There is fluctuation there depending on what we have planned in the heavier exercises, more classical lifts. More work is devoted to the classical lifts and the special exercises. So this is independent. This is individualized for each lifter. We increase week to week. Same process as this. The weight goes up as we go from week to week, starting with conservative numbers. Final phase, the peaking and realization phase. Again, increasing intensity here, looking for near maximum and maximum attempts in the squat. 1 to 3 rep maxes. We'll accomplish this by having more frequent attempts at maximum weights. Maybe both squat workouts in the week will have heavy attempts, heavy 1 rep max or 2 rep max attempts. More time is devoted to recovery, so we won't have as much volume. We won't need to distribute it across 3 or 4 days. We also may use a different method here. Instead of doing drop sets, after the lifter accomplishes their 3 rep max, they may increase again the weight for 1 single or 2 singles. The reason for that is it allows us to give the lifter a better feeling of the skill of squatting heavy weights. Because we've done so little heavy singles throughout this training cycle, or basically 0, doing the 1 rep maxes or the heavy singles after the initial work is done allows them practice there so that when they are actually peaked or ready to test their their maximum squat, they have some familiarity with it without having to do a lot of these singles in preparation for that. They're all warmed up. It's only a small increase. Maybe we're talking maybe 5 kilos above, 10 kilos above, depending on the lifter, what their 3 rep max or 5 rep max was. In this phase too, there's a noticeable reduction in volume as we get closer to the competition. Again, that's just a natural occurrence because we start with slightly higher reps when we start this training block and reduce them as we get closer. One major point to remember about this program is developed for weightlifters. The primary goal here is development of leg strength. It's not about having a giant 1 rep max squat. Ultimately, most of the work done here that's most productive for the lifters is going to be done in the earlier part of this training cycle. It's not extremely important for the lifter to have tested their 1 rep max to know exactly how strong it is as they approach a competition. We want the leg strength to benefit the lifter, and we want this leg strength to transfer well to the snatch and clean and jerk exercises. For that reason, it's written slightly different than it would be if we were trying to approach somebody and develop their 1 rep max completely to the exclusion of other things. And that concludes part 2 of developing leg strength for weightlifters. Make sure you go ahead and check out part 1 or subscribe to the YouTube channel. Or both, or you can do both.
Juggernaut Training Systems strives to provide the highest quality training information to help athletes, coaches, and trainers reach their goals. Learn from experts in powerlifting, weightlifting, nutrition, mobility, and more through Juggernaut's articles, ebooks, seminars, and online coaching. Plus, outfit yourself with Juggernaut's full line of apparel. Juggernaut is here to help you become unstoppable.